And then that leads us to our potting soil. So the type of potting soil you use is very important too. And a lot of people, I would say, and I totally understand it, a lot of people tend to want to, what's a nice way to say it, cheap out when it comes to the potting soil, or they're looking for they're like, why can't I just go pull it from my yard? Or, I saw 3 bags for $5 at an unnamed place, and, it's cheap. And I get that, I understand that. But if you're talking plant health, and if you're going to spend the money to get your pot ready, you're going to spend money to pick out your plants, I would encourage you heartily to spend the money to get the right potting soil, because it does make a difference. Our potting soil, of course I'm going to push our potting soil. Ken formulated this potting soil a few years ago. We used to actually grow out in Chino. So our grower was looking for the ultimate potting soil to grow things in, because growers are nerdy that way. And so they're looking for the right mix of peat moss with the mulch and the bark chips and the perlite and all that kind of stuff. So they put together this mix, and we've kept essentially the same mix for, I don't know, gotta be 7-8 years now, maybe more. And we do have people test it. We'll go to people we know that grow, and we'll say, check our potting soil, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And it does, and it's been very consistent. So our potting soil is what you call a soilless potting soil. A lot of peat moss in here, a lot of peat moss. There's also some perlite in here, there's some mulch. You'll find some kind of small little woody chips every once in a while, but that's basically from the mulch, which is basically very composted green goods. So it's a really good potting soil in that it allows for drainage. One of the weird things about a good potting soil is it stays moist, but it drains. If you get a potting soil that has a lot of, I forget what they call it, but it holds on to the moisture in it, and it's too heavy, that soil never dries out. And that is not good for your plants. Your plant roots need some oxygen. So you need a soil that will go somewhat dry, but not compact as it goes dry, or just stays constantly wet. There's that fine line in there. So soil is very important. Now, the negative with a potting soil that has a lot of peat moss in it is when it gets dry. So say you're gone for 3 weeks and nobody watered your plants while you were gone. This is going to dry out. That peat moss in there is going to contract and dry out. And the challenge, once it's dried out, is to get it moist again, to rehydrate it. So you really have to pour the water on if it's gotten dry, because what happens is you put water in there, and instead of penetrating in, sometimes it just goes right around, just cascading around. So that's the one negative. One way to counteract that, so these are Aqua Boost crystals. Aqua Boost crystals do a couple of things. There's mycorrhizas in here, which are kind of the tan little things in there. Mycorrhizas are good fungi that help with root growth. So very important. The little white things in here are water crystals. What water crystals do is when they get wet, they expand up. So they get nice little round balls. What they do over time is they slowly release the moisture out of that little ball. So it's kind of a way of helping your soil stay moist, but it's still going to allow for drainage because the air is going to be able to move around those. And the great thing about these is, they don't hang on to it so much that you never ever have to water again, and it's just a big muddy bog in there because they're slowly releasing that moisture. So it kind of keeps the roots hydrated, it keeps them cool. Very good product to use, especially in containers. I use it in all my containers, except for cactus. That I don't use it in. It gives you directions on here on the side. My one word I always caution everybody is follow the directions. Because if I were to dump this whole thing in here, I would have nothing but an oozy, gooey, bubbling, you would think you're being taken over by aliens kind of thing. So you definitely don't want to use more than is recommended. So when you get ready to pot, you got your potting soil, you're all set to go, you put your aqua crystals in there. The other thing I would say is make sure your soil is not sopping wet, but moist. You should be able to, like this, I can kind of clump it and it stays together, but it's not a mud pie. It just has a really nice feel to it. It's not overly wet, it's not overly dry. If your soil is dry when you're getting ready to plant, I would recommend getting your water bucket. And I'm gonna trip myself. Throw some water in there and then just kind of mix it. Kind of like a good bread dough or something like that. You want to mix it and get it so that it's the right texture for you. You do not want to plant into a dry soil. You really don't. You want to get it hydrated, because if that soil's dry, it does a couple of things. First of all, you're gonna get your plants in there and water it, and what do you think is going to happen? All that soil is going to settle down. And you'll be like, you're trying to lift your plants back up and throw more soil in. So make sure it's hydrated. The other thing is, if it's really dry and you put your nice little plant in there, it's gonna suck the moisture right away from the roots of that plant.